From the gridiron to the hardwood, James Mesh breaks it all down. It's time for another episode of Cleats and Sneaks.
The NBA is flipped on its head, and we're not even in November yet. This is what's crazy. You look at the fact that we've gone through a handful of games. Some teams have played 3 games. Some teams have played 4 games. We're very young into the season. The NBA plays 82 games, and we are only looking at not even a full handful of games, counting on your fingers. So this is a really early reaction, but at the same time, I had certain expectations of what I thought was going to happen. I had some predictions. I had certain standings on what I thought was going to happen by the end of the regular season. And there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time for everything to settle into place. I definitely think some teams, if you look at the standings, I definitely think a lot of them are going to fall, and some of them by proxy are also going to rise. So there's definitely going to be a lot of change. It's not like anything is anywhere close to set in stone, but I do find it very interesting that some teams that I thought were going to be good are on some really slow starts. I look at the Chicago Bulls. I had them as bottom 3, bottom 4 team. Like, really, I didn't even think they were going to get to the play-in. Right now, they're 3-0. Then you also have the Charlotte Hornets, who I thought was going to be another bottom 2, bottom 3 team. And right now they're 2-1, and they've looked good so far. They've looked pretty good. The thing, though, is also looking at some other East teams. You look at the top teams. I just gave you 2 top 4 seeds right now, because Chicago's number 1. The Sixers and Cavs are 2 and 3. That's much more in realistic range of what I was expecting. And then the Charlotte Hornets are right now number 4. And then you look towards the opposite, and this is currently just looking at record. But at the same time, the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers, I know they are both down their top players and they've lost some key pieces over the offseason. But I also did not expect them to combine to go 1-6 through their first combined 7 games. Like, they are occupying the 13th and 14th spot on the Eastern Conference at the moment. The Boston Celtics didn't get their first win until, as of recording this, last night against the New Orleans Pelicans. I was there in person, but even then, I'm still kind of shocked just looking at some of these results and then just the slow starts and fast starts as well that some of the teams have gone on. I still had hope that the Boston Celtics would still be a top 4 seed. I was looking more in the 4 to 5 range. I thought maybe they would be the 6 as well if some things just don't go right and maybe it's a little bit worse. But I was still looking at the Celtics to be a 48-win team, which I thought was very respectable, being in that 4 to 6 range. I also thought the Indiana Pacers were going to be a little bit worse. I definitely thought they were going to take a step down. I thought Miles Turner and not having Tyrese Halliburton was definitely going to hurt the team, but still having guys like Pascal Siakam, I thought they were going to be in that 7-8 spot range. But right now, it's definitely not showing that. And then at the same time, I look at other teams, and it's very congested right now because we're only a handful of games in. Once we get to like 15, 20, 25 games, teams will start to separate, and you can kind of have the layers of it all where you're like, okay, these are teams that are having a good start to the season and they've started to separate themselves. And then you start to have more of the middle range teams, and then you have really the bottom feeders. So it's really hard to tell. But I look at the Celtics, I look at the Pacers, definitely thought they were going to take steps back, but I didn't think it was going to be this extreme, especially with the play that you've seen. And then also, I thought the Orlando Magic, where there's no big-time injuries, are going to that squad. Nothing crazy happened to them. I really believe that they were going to be a top 3, top 4 seed. And they've won the same amount of games as the Boston Celtics. They're 1-3 as well. I'm just really shocked. I thought someone like Paolo Banchero, and I thought the Wagners, and I thought everyone else in company with the Magic, I thought they would have taken that next step forward. It feels like they were trajectorying to do so. And I know they took a step back last year, only winning 41 games. But at the same time, I thought Orlando was just going to get back into that 45 to 50 win range. I thought that was going to be a very realistic thing for them. But as of right now, seeing what you see, especially once they also got Desmond Main to really be a part of the squad to add some 3-point shooting and having a starting five of Suggs, Bain, Wagner, Banchero, and then Wendell Carter, I didn't think this was going to be a championship team. But overall, the East was supposed to be a lot weaker with these big-time injuries to some of these teams. The Celtics, the Pacers, the Bucks having no Dame. I thought that led to opportunities for some of these other teams to maybe take over and be higher in the standings. And once we get into the playoffs, but at the same time, I'm looking at it, and that's definitely happened where these teams from last year that had deep playoff runs and now have had injuries and had big time losses over the offseason, they're definitely not looking good. But this also led to an opportunity for teams like the Magic to really step up. And they just haven't done it through the first handful of games. Have not been impressed with what Orlando's really done on the court. And then at the same time, it's good to see that Philly is back. The thing with Philly, though, is it's more about Joel Embiid and the fact that he himself, you looked at that first game and you felt like, okay, he's done. At the same time, you start to look at it and you're like, okay, points per game. He's definitely not been what he was because he used to be an MVP candidate. And then as of right now, through the first 4 games for the Sixers, Joel Embiid's averaging 12 points on 20 minutes, which isn't the worst. But you used to look for him to be close to that 40-minute range because right now you got Tyrese Maxey and you got rookie VJ Edgecombe, both averaging 41 and 41 minute and a half minutes respectively. Those guys are really being the main pieces for this 76er squad. It's really incredible to see what VJ has already been able to do for the 76ers, and that's why you've seen them start off the season pretty hot, being 3-0. And then I just think the East, they're left a lot of opportunity, and you start to see some of the opportunity pop up. But I just think this has been absolutely wild to see on that side. And then also looking at the West as well. I mean, OKC's 4-0. That's no shocker. Denver Nuggets are definitely keeping themselves in pace. You also saw Nikola Jokic just the other night. Nikola Jokic goes for 25, 19, and 10. And he did it on a super efficient night, only taking 10 shots, but made 9 of them. So even though Denver, you had some losses, like that happened with everybody over the offseason, especially with some of the starters. But overall, the nucleus for Denver is still there. So they're definitely still a threat in the Western Conference. But I think we all expected the Utah Jazz to be the worst team, not only in the Western Conference, but in the NBA. Once again, only 3 games in, only a handful in out of 82. But started off 2-1. And you even look at some of the games that they did win, beating the Clippers, who their core starts to age more and more. But I was kind of shocked, especially when it was a 21-point victory. And then they also won a high-scoring affair against the Suns in overtime, 138 to 134. Look, I don't expect the Suns to be any good, but at the same time, I'm still kind of impressed with some of these early wins. Definitely keeping themselves ahead of the fold. Could they easily fall back into place and be one of, if not the worst team and have the worst record in the NBA? Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a realistic option. But you also look at some of these other teams. You look at the Houston Rockets. People talked up big, thought the fact that you got KD and you moved on from guys like Jalen Green, this was going to lead to making Houston a contender. Well, as of right now, they haven't looked all that great, especially with KD. Houston is not looking like they're in a great place right now. And a team, especially close in our area, like the New Orleans Pelicans, if Zion could stay healthy, you're like, well, maybe there's a chance. Look, I'm going to be honest. I could get more into this with the Pelicans. This feels like it's a ticking time bomb. And there's going to have to be some major changes happening not only soon, but very soon. like within the next couple of games, especially if things do not get any better, because they had their chance against the Grizzlies in game 1. Ended up losing that one. Ja Morant and company took over late. Game 2, San Antonio Spurs, who's a team that's looked incredible as of late. Victor Wembanyama just continues to take strides forward and develop into being one of the best players in the NBA. That's why you've seen them go into this 4-0 start, having a absolute incredible start. But then you look towards the New Orleans Pelicans, and they lose that one as well. It was close. They had a chance, but yet again, Pelicans lose late because they just fall apart in the second half, and even more specifically the fourth quarter. And then I go back to last night's game against the Celtics where it was competitive. And it's not like Boston is going to be a great team or looks like a great team right now. And then all of a sudden, the Celtics go on a 25-2 run, and then just everything falls apart in the fourth quarter in the waning minutes for the New Orleans Pelicans. And in a competitive game, through the first couple of minutes of the fourth, all of a sudden turns into a 32-point blowout by the end of the game. The New Orleans Pelicans, who we thought, this is a tough Western Conference, but if they somehow stay healthy and they can come together and Willie Green can actually prove himself to be a good coach and make good adjustments, they could compete. They might be able to be a 5 or 6 seed in the Western Conference. If not, you just go into the play-in and have a good chance of actually making the playoffs from there. But the way that they have played has been absolutely dreadful. And I know that Zion Williamson did not play last night. There goes already 1 game missed for Zion 3 games into the season. But even without him, even with him, I'm still not overly confident that the Pelicans can actually close out games. They've shown no signs to do so. Mavericks also on a slow start with Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Kyrie Irving. They're 1-3. The Memphis Grizzlies are in the middle of the pack, technically at 2-2. But Golden State, it does feel like the addition of Jimmy Butler, getting him to work with some of the other guys and Steph Curry and Draymond Green and company. Yeah, they're 3-1, and it did feel like I had them as a 3 seed. That's funny that that's currently where they're at. But I did feel like the way the Golden State Warriors were going to go kind of felt like their dynasty, in a sense, was really starting to die off. But you still have Steph Curry being one of the best players in the NBA. Jimmy Butler, instead of him having to be a number 1 option like he was in Miami, and now can be more of a number 2 scoring option, or maybe even number 3, depending on the night. It really fits with where he is at in his career. And then you still have Draymond kind of being the enforcer, the guy that can kind of control the offense and is the anchor of the defense in a sense. This has really worked out for the Warriors. And it started off really well. And it's really exciting to see the Warriors still have kind of a good quality basketball team that can actually win games. Even though it did feel like at points the last couple of years, like, are they finally going to go away? It doesn't feel like so as of yet. So, looking at it, there's definitely a lot of movement that has happened, especially compared to some of the expectation. But I do want you to remember that this is very early on in the NBA, so this may be some early reactions, but I think you are starting to see some signs of, look, you might want to still hold on to some of the teams that you think, okay, they can still make the turnaround. They have plenty of time to do so, especially if guys can either get healthy or stay healthy and not get injured. But looking at some of these teams, it's looking very dangerous that it could be a very disappointing season for some of them. Looking at the Pelicans, looking at the Celtics, could be even the Magic. I still have hope for the Magic, but that's a team that I'm very worried about. Very worried about it. But look, still got plenty of time, still got plenty of basketball to go around. Still got another 79, 78 games to go. We're not even in November yet. Not even in November yet. Appreciate you tuning in to another edition of Cleats and Sneaks. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Right here on Cleats and Sneaks, give a lot of football and finally got back into the basketball content. It's really early in the season. Very curious to see how everything goes down there. But look, it's an exciting time. We have we're in the middle of the NFL season. We got college football going on. A lot of firings going on over there. Really curious to see how the college football playoff rolls around. Just into the infancy of the NBA season. And we're currently in the World Series right now between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Saw a crazy game last night that went 18 innings. Whew, man, it's a great time for sports. But look, we're going to be covering a lot. Even on our other podcast, 4 Tire Change with our guy Dawson Islow, talking NASCAR as well. We got plenty of content and then also local content here if you're from the Lafayette, Acadiana, even Louisiana as a whole, since we cover the Saints, we cover the Pels, we cover LSU and the Louisiana Raging Cajuns and the McNeese Cowboys, and of course also those New Orleans Pelicans. And once they get back into season, those Houston Astros. We got it all for you here at ESPN Southwest Louisiana. So if you want to check more of that out, make sure to do so. But until then, I'll talk to you next time.